Hi, and welcome to this week's Keen Minds podcast, where we're covering the 8th episode of the 5th season of NBC's The Blacklist. Ian Garvey. I'm Jen, aka Takata Cycle.
And I am Tessa. And we are definitely wearing black bands in our arms, or at least in our soul's arms.
My heart. I have been utterly useless the last 24 hours. Because I started right before the episode where I was getting nervous, and I'm sitting there trying to talk myself down because you guys heard me. I had all the logic planned out. I think I know what they're doing. I don't like what they're doing. So I'm very unhappy with what they're doing. But it's not my show. They don't owe me my character surviving, but I can still remain very unhappy right now, which I am.
I think that I'm not a shipper, but I think that if I were, I would be far more devastated than I am. So I totally understand it. I am pretty devastated because just I like Tom, and I would like to have had a lot more resolution, and just as the dynamic between Red and Tom were getting so phenomenal.
There's so much left unresolved. Redemption is huge. And at this point, we talked about this when Liz, quote-unquote, died a couple seasons ago. If she was really dead, why would anybody care about the father question? At that point, why does anybody care? Okay, well, John's promised us redemption tie-ups. Why does anyone care at this point? Tom Keen is in the morgue. He's gone. He's dead. Why do we care if Scotty and Howard are still bickering in the background and waging war with each other? Why do, you know, I liked Kat, okay, but the fact that nobody has mentioned anything about it, with the exception of both of our families are weird or something like that, I'm a little upset over that. I know there's only so much time in the day to put into stuff, and the timing on the Blacklist, I've always had a little bit of trouble with. Sometimes I feel like they let things lag too long before they answer it. I mean, this is not the first time I've brought that up. But the thing is, even if you come up with it a couple seasons later, as long as the characters are still alive, you can bring it back around. Yeah, it might be a little bit further down, but things happen. I can get past that. You kill the character off, then you've got an issue. Nobody cares at that point. You have pretty much lost the majority of the Tom Keen fans. I'm not going to say the Keen Squared side, because that doesn't matter. These are the Tom Keen fans. These are the ones that followed him over to Redemption. This is a large chunk. Is it going to end the Blacklist? I don't know. I mean, that's not really something that I think about, but you have lost them. And so the people that would have cared about Redemption are gone. We're done. And I say that I do plan to continue watching. I have zero interest fandoming over this any longer. It's sucked the life out of me on it. And I may get better closer to January, but as of right now, the only thing I have on my radar, Blacklist, is this podcast, editing it down, and I have a fix-it plot bunny that is ravaging my ankles at this point that may or may not happen. But that's it. That's my Blacklist experience. And it makes me sick because of how deep I've been in this fandom for the last 3 years. Sorry, I'm a little bit upset, guys. Tessa's got this horrified look on her face like, oh, this is what happens when Jen gets pissed.
Yeah, don't worry. We're good.
It's okay. You should have seen Blacklister earlier. Her comment cracked me up. I'm not going to repeat it on air.
So, this is, should we start talking first about Samar or Aram, and then they didn't have a lot to do. I think that the only thing that Aram had was Aram kind of track a lot of the things, and actually gave Red some information to find Tom, which was actually pretty okay, because otherwise he would never have got to home in time. I noticed that he was wearing his plaid tie. It doesn't mean that he is doing something that he shouldn't, but certainly there is a lot of plaid in the post office, which is starting to make me convinced that there may be something to that thing that Ian Garvey is actually Cooper's new boss. And he wants Red Reddington just to do his bidding.
I don't know
Just
about
a thought.
that.
Just a thought.
I honestly,
Janice.
I've only
Janice.
seen it once. I can't, like, I typically, by the time we're recording on Thursday evening, I've seen it at least twice, sometimes even 3 times, depending. And I've seen it once. I couldn't even, because, like, when they were talking at the end, Tom was mumbling a little bit, because, hey, the guy was bleeding out, who blames him? You know, and I couldn't understand what he was saying to Liz. And I was gonna go watch it again afterwards, but I just couldn't. I haven't even looked for... I've seen gift sets that have come across. Thankfully, someone did the season 1 and the season 5 parallel of the stabbings. I'm so grateful to whoever did that, because I was going to. I can't. I'm just not there.
And Cooper and Samar, the only thing she said is, "Are you sure that Tom is not involved in something else?" So that's the extent of what they did.
I loved Cooper's faith in Tom when he mentioned that to Liz. He said, whatever he's involved in, basically it'll be okay. He has his reasons, and it showed. It was kind of a nice nod back to the fact that those two had worked together a couple different times now, and that Tom had earned Cooper's respect, and I think vice versa as well.
This has cemented a lot of things that are just now enter firmly into canon, and that is one of them. That Cooper actually held respect in affection for Tom, and Cooper with reason. Cooper had seen. And in a moment when he was overcome with emotions, Tom got them out of Solomon's trail, and that was important. He was clear thinking, and he was committed. And I love that little look that Cooper gave Red when he was entering. It was a stop, and it carried equal measures of, "I'm so sorry this is happening, and it's all your fault."
And that's something I agree with Cooper on. We'll get to that when we get to Red. I hold Red in quite a bit of blame here.
Yeah, well, it's his tragic fault. That's what makes it.
And it's a complicated blame, but there's still some blame there.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that when we get to Red, unless you're ready to go into Red.
Wrestler, I love Wrestler being the calm voice of reason, especially in that horrifying, bloody scene. I love that Liz just goes to him, and she is so desperate. And this is somebody who absolutely knows that terror. That he knows that terror in his soul. He knows what it is to fear and to lose somebody that you love.
Yeah.
And
it was a nice scene, and I mean, we saw it before. It floated around and was gifted and such before, and it was very nice. As I've always been a big fan of that friendship, and to see him be the one she goes to was a nice reminder of that friendship, of how close they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it had a lot of I mean, this episode was, if I had any doubts that the Blacklist is now running towards the end, it's not even walking anymore, this would have been the episode where that became utterly clear, that we are tying and we're bringing so many parallels of themes and symbols from other episodes. You can see where we're going. So in a way, I'm not surprised by that. I'm extremely saddened because it's, my second favorite character, but definitely saddened. And then finally, we have to go into Dembe before we go into Liz, Red, and Tom.
I just wish
Because
somebody would listen to Dembe for once. You've got to think you're lying. You are being untruthful to them. You are lying to them. Tell them the truth. Tell Liz the truth. Why can't you tell her the truth? I'm just like, he's a broken record. Someday you will listen to him, Red. That someday needs to be now. I
I'm not even sure that Dembe is not getting to a point where he's going to say, listen, I can't save you. I can't save you anymore.
I mean, Red is just stubborn.
He's
on
getting
that.
to be beyond redemption. He's really getting to be beyond redemption because, not because of the bad things that he has done, but
He's not
because
learning. He's
he's
not
not
learning from his
learning.
mistakes. And that's been a complaint of mine about Red since the get-go. When I said that I had issues with the fact that he hasn't had a lot of character growth, and he has now, and we've seen it, we've talked about it, but he still has a horrible
When we
learning
got to the suitcase, he went right back to ground zero, both with Liz and with Tom. But Demba definitely had this beautiful moments. When he's telling you didn't ask my opinion because you know what you have to do. But one of the most interesting things in that episode was Dembe telling Red, because I've always been a big defender. Like, Red is not technically lying. He is Red speak. He's skirting the truth. He is omitting. He's misleading. He's using a precise meaning of a word to, so it sounds like something, but it's not that. It's something else. And Dembe call him on it. But what I find most interesting is that Dembe doesn't say you're lying to Liz, you're lying to Tom. He was very precise in what he said.
You said you're not being lying. Oh, I thought you said you're not being honest with them.
He said, you're still lying to Tom, to him, and to Elizabeth. Until, while you're still lying, there will be no peace. And that, I think, it exemplifies what Red's growth will or will not be. If he doesn't learn to trust someone, he will cause the death of everyone. He will be like a train barreling, taking everybody, including Agnes, to death.
Yes, because in all of this, they went well out of their way, the writers did, to make a point of Tom saying, I am doing this because you hide things. That is the only reason I'm doing this. And so the reason he is in the middle of all of this crap is because Red cannot come clean to Liz. If he would come clean to Liz, Tom would be like, well, I wish I knew, but, at least she knows. But because of that, Tom is dead and Liz was in a coma for 10 months, 10 months.
Mm-hmm. When we get to what Dembe says and the way he looks at it, he said, I found it interesting that he's saying you're still lying to him, which means Red has been lying to Tom. And think about the things that they've been saying. It is obvious that in all this hiring of Tom, there is something else. There is something else in all this mystery that is not just, hey, he went to an operative, he went to the major and got the best operative to look after Liz. There is more here.
I think he knew. At some point, he knew he was Christopher. He had to have, because he popped off about it. That's another thing I want answered. I have a list of things that are... you've got your things as a fan that you want answered. I was like, oh, we get the major back, sweet. Yeah, but those are, if we had a 5-second window that we could do this, I would love to see. But then there are things that are important, like the fact that Red knew that Tom was Christopher and that he held it. I need information about that. I need redemption wrapped up. There's just so
I think it will
much.
come. I think it will come.
But why now? Who cares now besides me?
Wait until you get to the end of the Blacklist. I've always said, and I think by now I'm not to my own horn, although I sometimes have to. I think that I'm probably among the people who have had most things predicted that come right.
I
And
was until last night.
yeah, well, you did pretty good. Hey, you did pretty good, and until the last second, you did pretty good.
I
Yeah.
was right up
Then,
there until the point that counts.
yeah, well,
I had someone that was in. Don't get me wrong. She was trying so hard to make me feel better, and nothing was going to make me feel better last night. And she said, "Well, at least they gave him, as good of. If they had to kill him, at least that he died fighting for Liz. He died, being a hero, basically. All of this, and that is all completely accurate. Don't get me wrong." I said, "Yeah, but then they killed him, and that kind of puts a damper on it." I said all of these fantastic scenes that I would just be gushing over right now mean nothing anymore. Because that cold bucket of water came over my head as he flatlined and didn't come back. Because, characters flatline all the time on shows, and then a few minutes later you're like, oh, they shocked them back. Oh, that's nice, And I'm going to be angry this entire podcast. I just apologize. I'm just going to be angry because I talk about it and I'm getting riled.
Yeah, even her eyes have this hard look on them. Yep, that's imagine. Now now we have, I think, to go into let's go into Liz, because Liz has, we're going to have to talk about all these things all together. So maybe there is very little order that we can do that. And I know, I mean, guys, I'm going to be the one who takes the lead in here, because Jen is, she's
scattered,
beaten up a little bit. Yeah, and it's, the only thing I was thinking about last night was, oh my God, they killed Tom, and oh my God, how my friends are gonna do.
I got a message immediately after it happened. Tessa's like, "Are you okay?" I went, "I don't know yet." It was the most honest answer I knew how to give. And then about an hour later, I'm like, "Nope, no, I am not." I found my answer.
I want to talk first about Red, because Red is my favorite character. I love Red. He's a very dark, very gray character. However, this is a turning point for Red. If Red does not learn from this, if he doesn't overcome his tragic flaw, I can tell you exactly how this is going to end. This is going to end with everybody dead, and Red standing over the grave of Agnes. This is how it's going to end, because this is the point where he is. Tom didn't even want honesty. Tom wanted trust, and Liz wanted honesty. And Tom was the person who made his Liz happy was Tom. And not even because of it, he could not trust to say, listen, this is what it is, and be a human being to another man who he acknowledged freely that does everything because he thinks that Liz's well-being. So at this point, I think that Red is inching, and I've always been a stout defender of him, that he has reasons, but we're getting to the point that no matter what the reasons are, he is now careening into the tragic flaw. It's taking the world with him.
I agree. I 100% agree with that. And that was actually my reasoning behind thinking Tom was going to survive. I had reasons for Tom himself, but my biggest reason was I didn't think they would be willing to set their lead guy up to fail like this. Because he just cost his daughter her dream. He just cost his grandchild her father.
He took from his grandchild the father. The one thing that he told Liz in that beautiful scene that we've had with Ames, that it's all about him. It's him. he removed Liz's father from her when he decided to go on his revenge quest. And that everything that he has done is not about Liz, it's all about him and his guilt. So now he can add on top of that that he left his grandchild without a father.
Grandchild without a father, and for the first time in a very long time, Liz felt happy.
Yeah.
And he cost her that. It was not intentional. And I know that if anybody that is inclined, so I may get some comments about this, but I've been saying it all day and no one's bothered me over it, so they may just know better by this point, as I've been in a mood. But I say this not as in Red intentionally went and cost her this. I think this is going to eat him alive. And just as you were saying, the key is learning from it. I don't know if that's going to matter at this point. I do not know, because he's already cost it. He has cost her dream. Now, he may be able to save Agnes, but I'm not sure he'll save the relationship with Liz. In whatever those bones are, they weren't worth this, because he's going to lose Liz over this. There are very few things she would leave her father over. I think this is it.
It was, and also because Red here was going way past his usual Red speak into lies. He was lying left and right. This time even to Liz. Well, he was like, "Oh, I talked to you 20 minutes ago. Well, I'm scared about my husband. Do you mind that I call you about something? Have you?" And then he says, but I had a lead about the murder of Nick Corpal. He knows very well that the lead is about Tom's too, but he's not saying that.
He's not technically lying to her. He's just not even delayed honesty, just choiced honesty.
Now he has stretched that so thin that it's not longer recognizable as a lie, because he says, my lead was about Nick Corpal's death. That's a lie, because only once you put that only there, that's a lie. And even if he didn't vocalize the only, that's what he made her believe. So now we're going into a territory that it's not the Red that has always been. This is a Red that is desperate. That and he tells Dembe, I don't know why I can't be honest with her.
And that's what got me. That's what made me so, I was hurt up until that point, until I started thinking it through and realized that, while he's probably keeping this from Liz because he's afraid it'll affect their relationship, that is my best guess. With Red, that seems to be a typical reaction for him. But it was a very simple question. Why can't you be honest? I don't know. This is Dembe that knows everything, that knows all the secrets. There's no reason to lie to him on this. And Red says, I don't know. And so basically, obviously not from a writing's perspective, but from Red's perspective, inside the story, Tom Keene just died for nothing. Because he doesn't know why he can't be honest with Liz. And that made me insanely angry at Red. I was just so mad. Not in
but he's also lying to Liz, telling him the situation is not bad. He knows it's bad because the guy just told him it's bad. He tells Aram that Tom got himself involved in something bad and is taking Liz, is manipulating Aram into giving him information in order to get there, which, was to save him. But in that moment of honesty, he could have still stopped it when he calls Tom on the speaker. He could have he could have said, listen, let's just talk this through.
I got so upset. In the middle of that scene, I sent Chris M23 a message. I went, how dumb are they? He just shone a spotlight on Tom, and then Tom jumped happily into it by answering the damn phone. I was just so
I don't
mad.
think that he was there. Unless, of course, Ian Garvey
Well,
is on the FBI, and then he has access to all those nice little
Reddington didn't
things.
know who was there. He shone a spotlight on Tom, called total attention. Go answer the red phone. Really? So not only answer the phone, but here's a very specific place so that if anybody is following you, you have just broadcasted where you are. I mean, the fact that Red did it, and then the fact that Tom followed up on it. Chris and I were talking about. We said they are both being so emotional right now. This is so stupid. We were both
I wasn't,
so angry.
yeah, I wasn't concerned about that because
Oh,
I don't think
was.
that anybody knew where he was. But
Red
my
didn't know that,
concern
though.
is that at that moment, they both still have. They had two moments in which that could have done when Tom says, if you don't trust me by now, for a moment, he had that smile when they finally, they worked together well with that. Even they managed to get out the three of them alive. It was
And he
great. It
switched
was,
the bones. And he switched the bones. That's what
he
he was
got the
smirking
bones,
about.
and he talked about it, but there he is. He got the Molotov cocktail, which was a great move because it allows them to get away. They did great, and he's having this smile, this kind of goofy smile because he's all banged up. Um, and says that was fun. And then he says, if you don't trust me by now, it's like, I am married to your daughter, and we just work together. We are together in this. This was Tom telling him, I'm married to your daughter. Can we stop this stupid thing
Yeah.
of you hating
Get
your
over it.
son-in-law? And that was a moment. And then he goes into this thing about the wedding, which I'm sure it was an honest reaction with Red, but that wasn't what Tom was saying. He basically telling Tom, I wanted to kill you, but I didn't because you are what makes Elizabeth happy. And so there I am, powerless. Instead of saying, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll tell you what this is about. Maybe I'll tell you even the reason why I can't tell you about. No, instead I'm just going to tell you how I didn't kill you when I wanted to. Um, and then they call him on it. Like, you're still lying. So there is something about that involvement of Tom Keen that is peculiar. And I want to go there into now, if you don't mind, the major scenes. Because we have got a lot of canon here.
I want to go back to those so bad, and I will hopefully someday, because you know how much I love that. I love to hate that relationship is really what it boils down to, because the Major's so twisted, and he twisted Tom up so badly as a kid. I mean, because he wasn't, twisted up before being stolen as a small child. The Major came and put the icing on the cake of all the trust issues. And I saw him and I legitimately cheered. I was so excited to see him.
We've learned a lot of. We actually got quite a bit of canon and dots on the I's that have been firmly placed. First of all, Scott is Liz's middle name, like Scotty's middle name, not her last name. That wasn't a whoops. We were gonna call Sam Scott, and then we decided to go Milhon. She's called Elizabeth Scott Milhon. It's right there, and they focus the camera on it, so it's there. That's her name. The other thing is, Tom never knew that he was working for Reddington. How on earth could he sell him to Berlin when he didn't know who he was working for?
I think he did at some point. He knew at some point.
I don't know when. Not when he married her. Because, when the Major is calling her on it, like, that's a target. It says her name is Elizabeth Keen. Elizabeth. It's a very, very interesting scene because, well, it has so many parallels in it. I was like in parallel heaven and this pain of Tom dying. So it's a very complex emotion for me on this episode. Jen is just bummed out. I'm like, kind of like, oh my God, he was so good. Oh my God, he died. Oh Lord, this is terrible.
That's
but
what
anyway,
I was saying. The amazing episode that it was doused for me. It, like, everything else was negated because they killed Tom off. It just, it killed everything for me. I was done,
Oh. Well, the advantages of being a theorist. So as long as there is a bit more theory.
I'm a writer. I've been in this guy's head for the last 3 years, and then there's nothing. Just nada. And that's what's getting me, I think. Is that I joke that I should have a degree in Tom King with all the metas I've written, with the fan fiction I've, dropped into as deep as I can go into his personality, his background, everything, and called quite a bit correctly over the years.
You did.
With Tom's character development, because I know Tom Keene very well, and then they went and took him away from me, and I'm very upset. I'm taking this very personally. I know I shouldn't, but I am. I know this is not a personal swipe from the writers. I am well aware of that on a logical level, but I'm allowed to be illogical every great once in a while.
Yes, you are, ma'am.
This is my moment here.
So
I have been good and positive. Not now.
Yeah, now it's another time. Now there were very interesting things with that scene with Tom. First we saw the Tom, he gets the assignment. He doesn't know he's working for Red, and it's interesting because there is a little snippet there that I find most interesting, and this is where my theories are going. Like, oh wait, spotlight. Tom, which is something that I called again, and everybody said, no, he just got in and did whatever he wasn't supposed to do. No, remember I called it? He was supposed to meet Liz. He was supposed to be a friend of a friend, remain in the periphery of her life. And then what happened? He designed a personality that was supposed to be for Liz the most unattractive thing on earth. A geeky school teacher that, the woman is going with grifters and, and then this geeky guy. But he sees the girl, and I was like, oh, she's cute. He says, you're not to get involved with her, so.
Bud was so offended by the whole thing, too. So pissed.
It's like, well, I imagine because either, like, the Major has never seen her refer to a female target like that, or something in that was like, what are you saying, Dan?
It should have set off all the alarm bells for Bud. It really should have, because he should have known Jacob well enough for that. But apparently he didn't. All he saw was the $signs, and
yet that's what the part that I'm saying, maybe not. Maybe there is a bit more. Why it was Tom. Even when Tom said, oh, she's cute, and the Mayor's like, you're not supposed to get involved, and Tom is like putting the eyes up already, and that there is so many warning bells that should have been saying, like, Palsy, let me give it to somebody else. Somebody who will find her horrible. No, he gives her that. Then they meet again and says the contractor is livid and he's going to kill you. Get out. And he still doesn't. And then we learned that Red was at the wedding. You want to talk about the wedding?
I don't know. I went into this episode knowing that we were going to get wedding, and I was going to gif it. I was going to do this whole set of all the Keen weddings, and I had this whole big plan for it. And it was gorgeous. It was. I was thrilled. And I liked the idea of Red being there. And because I wrote a one-shot in part of the Truth and the Lies series that I did, in which Tom, at their first wedding, was really expecting a bullet to the head the entire time. Because I could see that happening, in which that, especially if he didn't know it was Red, but if he knew that there was this guy that was, hated him for what he was doing, that he probably had to have thought of that. And it was a gorgeous scene. I enjoyed Red reiterating that Tom was safe because Liz loves him. I mean, that has been hammered in, that Red is well aware that Liz loves Tom. And I feel like I saw someone online complaining about that they took time to go over things that we already knew. Talking about Tom, doing this for Liz, Tom loving Liz from the get-go, etc., etc. And I said, well, yes, they did reiterate that, but there's a lot of people out there that seem to have missed that memo. That's why Tom's been here.
All the scenes, you mean?
Yeah, I
Like
said that they came through and they were being very
hours of
blatant
scenes.
about it. Yeah, they missed this.
Yes.
But the writers were being very blatant because I think that for all of my disagreements in their choice right now, as it stands, I do think they were doing their best to send him out well. And they were trying to clear up any confusion, any misinterpretations, what have you, that it was all a job for Tom
Well,
at the beginning,
I
because
think
it never was.
I think that for the writers and the grand scheme of millions of viewers worldwide, uh, the the small super fandom shipper community, it's a blip. I mean, you can even take the shipper out of there. The small super fandom, we are a blip. We're like a little drop in the ocean. The majority of people. I was going, and my husband says, "What scene was that?" I'm like, "You don't remember the ring when she was put in the closet? There was a ring. Oh, she was put in a closet." And this is a guy who has sat with me and have watched the episode sometimes twice. He's even done a rewatch of season 1 and 2 with me. So, yeah, we're a blip in the ocean. I honestly think that those points that they were reiterating are very important for the overall mythology. And I warn anybody, you like Tom Keen or hate Tom Keen, those points, if you don't get them, you're never going to get the mythology. That's simple. Tom fell in love with Liz, but knew that he was already getting pretty involved just looking at the picture of her, and sent him in. And that Red was at the wedding. And so all of those points that have been hammered in this episode are very, very important in mythology.
I'm sure they
And
will be.
and they clear a lot of the misunderstandings in the small but extremely vocal group of antis.
Yeah,
Which finally got their wish, and I'm guaranteed they're not gonna be happy with what happens later.
yeah. I'm not even gonna go there. It's a point of contention.
I'll tell you this show is going to descend into the kind of darkness that a lot of people will leave because of the darkness. It's getting there.
As it stands right now, from where I see this going, with her basically becoming a vigilante at this point, if that's where they end it, because I mean, what are they gonna do unless they fake Tom's death, which is a very small percentage of a possibility. But unless they do that, she's lost her dream. She's lost her family. When she finds out Red was involved in all of this, even though he never meant for Tom to die, she may lose him, or he may lose her.
You remember you never mentioned that you were in the room with him when as he was dying?
Minor detail.
She was pretty, yeah.
You know, and it's just, it's gonna be bad. And I'm a big fan of, I write dystopian stories. My original stuff tends to be along the dystopian line. And so I understand going dark. I understand looking at the tougher points of a story and the hard questions to deal with. I get that. I love that. I'm there for that. But there has to be a glimmer of hope. And if there isn't a glimmer of hope, I don't want to be there. Because there's enough darkness in this world that I don't need to be spending my free time delving deeper into it. I can turn the news on for that. And if that's how this story ends, it's their story to tell. The Johns have their story. I believe that they've been working on it straight through. I don't think that they've purposely misled anybody. But if that's the story they end up telling, I am personally going to be very disappointed. That's just where I'm coming from. If it goes so dark and never has a glimmer of hope at the end.
Maybe
it'll be Agnes. Maybe Agnes is the only hope we've got. But I think it sucks they've taken her dad away from her.
We're going, and it's funny because do you remember when we were talking about the suitcase, and I said Kate's objective was to get Tom killed?
Well, objective correct.
Yep.
She got him killed.
Bye back. Jen is in no position to be patting my back, so I'm patting my own for you that can't see it. So, I think that can we go into that fantastic scene in the barn with Tom? Because that was just awesome. I mean, Tom is there. We got Pete's body, Lena's. They put him on the table. They got this plastic thing, and they put Lena through the wood chipper. This is 8 o'clock at night, and they put Lena through the wood chipper.
I did notice that they put up a viewer discretion advised. At the beginning, I went, what are you people about to do? And then that happened, I went, that's why.
Yeah, I saw the wood chipper in one of the promo pictures. I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to be, it's going to be messy. So in that scene, I mean, we have, did you see all the parallels? There's a lot of blood. Remember, read description of Liz's description of the Zamani scene. There was blood. All I saw was blood. This is just like that. She's coming into a scene when there is just blood everywhere. Did you notice that when Tom gets a little piece of the necklace that Lena was wearing, there was also a piece of bone. So even if they couldn't make him take the plastic ties with a bone, they still managed to put a bone in there, very similar to the one that I used to try to get away from Berlin, and very similar to the one Berlin used to get away from the guards that were sent from his daughter. And there is, the bones of this young lady that was put through the chipper. Thank God she was dead. Yay.
Yeah, I would rather be dead if they're going to put me through a wood chipper.
Yeah. That was what he was threatening Tom. He's like, but just put him through the wood chipper. Don't bother killing him. I mean, the man is a psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
He is so far the best violent villain they've ever had. This guy made Berlin look like a little piss gentleman who has a minor complaint about, something that was
very polite complaint. Very polite complaining.
Yeah, I mean, this guy is bad. Did you notice that it looked very much when Liz gets in there, it's just like that scene, and then we get another repeat of that scene when she gets in the house. But the fight that Tom did there was unbelievable. And it's funny as Cooper is saying, don't worry, he'll get himself out of that. And Tom and Red is saying he probably have a plan already in motion to get away from the people that are holding him. And
he
Red
knew that because he was in the plan. He was the plan.
Yeah. And he had a guy there that kind of was looking as things were being put through a chipper. And the guy is like, oh, it's bad. As the chipper goes, whirring, and blood is splattering everywhere. Oh, that's so much for not being dark enough at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, they just wanted to prove it. Oh, Blacklist.
Then how about that scene when Red comes in, opens the car door, and Tom is still hesitating? Didn't it remind you of the scene when in Ellie Matchett when they drop the cop and Liz is like having this I don't know what, and she's not getting in the car, and Red is like, get in the car.
I'm not pulling that scene from my brain. Oh, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, they bring the cop.
Maybe a little. just they beat on him so badly before killing him. Good heavens, they made me
Yeah,
look
but
tame.
they were very fun scenes because at least they gave the character an opportunity to do what he did best.
Oh
He
yeah,
managed. He's a tough guy. He got patched up by Red. He's not even like reaching, not tie, no anything. Just I'm going to sew you up. I'm going to do this. There's like nothing, no
I
baby in
did
here.
love the light teasing with Red while he was patching him up when he said, well, it could have gone a little more northeast and saved us
Yeah.
all a lot of trouble, and popped him very lightly on the back of the head.
Hmm.
It was such a father-in-law sort of statement. You know, when father-in-law and son-in-law are spies.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Well, other guys go like, yeah, I could have married somebody better. Um, I guess here is after dousing somebody with alcohol and sewing them up and all that. It reminded me that scene to the wrestler scene.
Yeah,
The scene in the box when he's patching up wrestler, and it's funny because in that there isn't the emotional thing. I mean, he knows wrestler is being, betrayed him and went to well, betray him, tried to kill him. He knows all these things, but they hadn't the emotional quality that it had with and think of that at the time. Think about what Red said to wrestler when I used to despise people like you. So when Red saves wrestler, he despises wrestler. And still saves him. And now he's saving or helping the son-in-law, and he's still making jobs on him. So you can see that the relationship is really and truly that of an in-law. And it reminded me so much of Dom in Red.
yep,
A little job. Yes, you're hurting because your daughter died, but I still can give you a job.
yep.
Like you're waiting for a hug, sympathy, um, a kind word.
Anyway, I don't know any
So
other.
from there on, we go into the scene where he gives Red. They have that great opportunity, and both men have tragic flaws. They're in the car. Tom has switched the bones, and he gives Red an opportunity to come clean. He says, and he's telling him, I need trust. And Red, instead of giving him trust, gives him a story about why he didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And Dembe is like, I'm so done with this. You're lying, and there's never going to be peace until you stop lying. I love that man.
I just wish somebody being Red would listen to him. Just once. That's all I ask.
I'm interested why Dembe never went to Tom and said, I guess because it would seem like a betrayal, like saying, you know what, maybe it's the time to, maybe there was nothing to do. Maybe until Red does it. And Red is a man who first hold grudges. I mean, he's still holding a grudge against Tom. They've been married for 2 years when the series opened, and it's been 5 years.
Yeah.
So this is 7 years.
Nearly a decade into this.
He's still holding the grudge that I told you not to get involved and you didn't. And at the end is an incredible amount of Red is really an arrogant man. Remember when he said I was arrogant? I was different. And the thing is, like, he's still deep inside, he's still the same arrogant man.
Yeah.
Because you cannot tell somebody don't get involved. You can tell somebody not to get involved. It says, don't make excuses. Like, I wasn't making one. I fell in love with your daughter.
Yeah.
But something in this thing, I want to also, before we continue into Red, I want to say something because I think it's very interesting. Do you remember in one of the scenes, the deleted scenes with Kate and Sam, and she says how that she's now called Elizabeth because she says I treat her like a queen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now remember when The major says,
But
I don't care if she's Queen Elizabeth
you knew
and
that
screwing her
makes you
makes you
king.
the king. Yeah. Makes you king. Screwing the queen makes you queen. And then I'm starting to get a feeling that somehow Liz and Tom were supposed to meet, and there's, the queen and Keen, and there's something going on in my head. I can't put a word. I don't have anything. But there is also something that tells me somehow these guys were supposed to meet.
Well,
I don't know where it's going, but I just know that there is something there. And I love how in the middle of like the guy has been escaping this scene that his own man told him he was horrendous. And the thing is, like, I told you about the suitcase. I mean, he looked like a toddler. He looked like he was a 7-year-old. Yeah, I told you. Are you kidding me? What kind of red is this? It's a kid descended into being a 7-year-old.
you're not going to hear me counter you on this.
No.
I'm so upset with Red right now. Like, yeah, you're not going to hear me counter it. If you're waiting for me to deny this or somehow offer up some sort of defense for Raymond Reddington right now, it's not happening.
All right. How about when Liz goes? Do you remember Tom Connolly? Liz goes into Union Station to look at some cameras, and Cooper is distracting the guy, telling him, to pay attention on something. And meanwhile, he's distracting the guard.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Liz is looking at the cameras. That was very similar to the scene where Tom is looking at the cameras, and Lena is taking a picture of the camera, and Lena is distracting the guy. So you're getting so many repeated imagery and scenes. It's almost like you can see where this is going. This is beginning the picking up of the things, of all those dangling ends.
What I would love for it to be another parallel scene between the Keens is the fake death. If they could just do that one for me, I'd be totally okay. All would be forgiven if this is a fake death. I don't think.
And there is nothing to say that they couldn't do it. I personally think he's dead. But then again, who knows? For all we know, this is Cooper who got the fake death. Because Cooper is the one who identifies the body.
Yes, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. It could be Wrestler, but Cooper went himself.
Yeah. I think that goes back to the respect, though. I think that goes back to the respect.
But if they were ever going to pull it off, it would not have been Red. It would have been Cooper.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, then we're getting to the. Did you notice the old car in the barn covered with a tarp, just like the one in Cape May?
Oh, was it?
It's also covered with a tarp, and it's old.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't work, so. You're getting all these imageries. The scene at the kitchen table where Tom is sitting there and Tom is patching his back. That's just like the scene with the kitchen table and Dom and Red eating the eggs. They're sitting at a kitchen.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of kitchen stuff. I mean, that one's kind of a stretch there. Nobody was patching anybody up.
No, but there was a kitchen table involved, and there was a father-in-law or father-in-law figure with a son-in-law figure, and they're having a little, yeah. They're just, I know, there's some that are very, very tenuous, but they're there. Did you notice something that the Tom hole in the shoulder was just like the one Katarina had in Requiem? She had a burn or a hole in the shoulder, in the same spot.
What I noticed about that was it was huge. I don't know what he got hit with, but good grief, that was a bit. I mean, that looked more like an exit wound than an entrance wound.
It could have been the kind of shotguns that guys
that's the only thing.
Something big. It was really big.
Yeah, it was huge.
And then well, we've talked about all these things that it's now canon that Tom fell in love with Liz. It's now canon that the reason he went to Berlin in whatever way he went to Berlin, no, considering that by the time he marries Liz, he had no idea he was working for Raymond Reddington.
And it may have been Berlin that told him that.
Mm-hmm. And he must have been like, oh boy, what did I
Then.
just do? Okie dokie. I guess this makes me.
Well, that's gonna be fun.
And I think that you've said many times that he had like a little crush on Red, like Red was like the golden standard, and I thought in that scene of the car, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about you because he looks so happy that they managed to get away, that he, Dembe, and Red.
Oh, I thought that at first too, and then I realized once he switched the bones, that's what he was smirking about. It was the same little smile he got as Eugene Pavlenko, that when he got smacked down on the car and he got that smirk going, like, I've got you exactly where I want you. It's the exact same smile he had going there. It was all right. You're not gonna trust me? Well, I'm about to turn you around. You're never gonna see it coming. That's Tom Keene.
But
folks.
It was interesting because that moment in the car was the last chance they had to both come clean. It was the last chance for Red to give Tom what he needed, and Tom to tell Red, he was giving him a chance. Tom doesn't trust anybody, and he wanted trust, and Red can't openly talk about anything. And then finally, we're getting to the parts where they get to the house. Now, did you find interesting that Tom asked Liz to take Agnes? If he were so worried about being dangerous, why not tell Liz, I'm coming to the FBI? Why that? Because that to me was like, that's a red flag. He should have told Liz, I'll meet you in a public place. I'll meet you in... Why? What was it he has to say that he was? And he tells her, don't tell anybody, don't let anybody follow you, don't tell anybody that you talk with me. That lets me know that there is something about the FBI that is involved in that suitcase mystery.
Yeah, there's something huge there.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll find out eventually.
It wasn't something like as soon as he saw it, because you see it. He takes a paper, he reads, and then he looks around like, is there somebody watching me now? Like, did you notice that? So there is something in there that is not just personal. It's not about him and Liz and Red and whatever person is in there. There's something big. That was the reaction that got me, He looks around, and then you see, like, he's trying to figure out all the connections. So it wasn't just like, oh, he saw who it is, and oh, it's immediate. He had to figure out the connections.
Yep. No, but
and then she comes in and finds him tied to the chair. There is the same scene, and notice that Ian doesn't seem to care who Liz is. So, and she's being outed as Masha Rostova. So it's not that. That's not what Ian wants that suitcase for. It's not about Katerina. It's not about... He wants to control Red. So what Red thought it was, it's not. It's not that the guy wants money or sell it to him. He doesn't want to sell it to him. He wants to control Red. So Red is wrong one more time.
Yeah, he's had a run of that.
The fight in the house.
No. Liz... As a Tom fan, I loved the fight. Because you had Tom fighting for Liz. That no matter how hard he'd been hit, and he'd been stabbed 3 times... as far as I could tell, like I said, I've only seen it once. I haven't gone back and really watched that scene closely. Probably got a lung with that, where he was stabbing him. Could have, at least, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure he got a kidney or liver or something. He was
Yeah.
heavily bleeding.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was a lot of blood there. So I
Did
mean,
you
he
notice the use of chair as a weapon by Liz, that he did it with Kirk too?
yeah.
He got
Um,
Ian.
but the fact that he was, I mean, it just that's when the fight came. Was when Liz was in trouble.
Did you see the way they were going to kill her?
Yeah, they were gonna smother her.
They was going to smother her. It was just going right back to the two characters that had been smothered. Tom smothered Jolene Park, and Red smothered Newton Phillips.
Yeah. But yeah, and so I honestly I
He
couldn't
died
understand.
fighting.
Yeah, he did. I couldn't understand their conversation very well in the car, partially because I was freaking out, and partially because they were half unconscious. Both of them were, and mumbling.
Oh,
I went back and saw a gift set of it though, and it was, I mean, it was a fantastic scene, but I'm having trouble talking about it because, yeah, it was a good scene, but the good scene was ruined because he ended up dying. It would have been a fantastic
um,
scene if they'd both pulled through.
okay. I'm probably a little weird, and probably the reason why I can be a shipper, because I thought the scene was actually much better because he died.
Mm-mm.
I'm weird. I know. I acknowledge I'm strange. I love that scene I love the fight in the apartment, that when Tom realizes they're gonna smother Liz, he gets up, and had he not done that, he would have pulled through. But he saves Liz. And for those who have been saying, oh, well, you can't have redemption unless you lose everything. Well, he did. He lost his life. And he wasn't doing anything for himself. It was all to give Liz the truth that he thought she needed to have. And in that scene, that fight in that apartment, Tom, with three stab wounds, was taking three guys out.
Yep. And a bullet to the
Actually,
shoulder.
yeah.
I mean, because he'd had a bullet to the shoulder earlier that day.
And he got pretty beaten up when he was in. After that, the guys beat him up pretty bad.
Yeah.
They were kicking. They were the stab wounds. The kitchen, the steak kitchen that Liz was referring to. Like, I have a set of steak kitchen, and it would be used to stab your husband again in a kitchen while he's tied to a chair. Again,
Yeah.
Liz uses a chair on the guy just like she did on Kirk, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful fight that I love, and Liz is like so out of it. That was it, and I love the fact that they bring a death that is very similar to Hitchens. So they're using always these imageries that they come back. Did Hitchens die because Red pushed her and she cracked her head? Liz almost dies because of exactly the same thing. They hit her and she cracked her head on the floor.
Yep.
It must have been one hell of a concussion.
No kidding. Uh,
And then the scene in the car, and Tom repeats something that he told Liz when he was leaving in 117. And for those who said, oh, he's manipulating her, no, he wasn't, because when he was leaving in 117, he stopped to tell her she was beautiful. And in this scene, he tells her, you're beautiful. um and it was, I'm not a romantic person, but I gotta say that scene probably is one of the most beautiful and sad scenes I've ever seen. So kudos to the writers, the actors, the directors, and everybody. It was a beautiful scene. And Liz is and Liz telling Tom, tell Agnes about me. That is it. If I, like, when in the fake death, as she said, if I don't make it, tell Agnes about me. Bring Agnes to the beach. Um, oh, it was a beautiful scene.
yeah.
Jenny's speechless.
I mean, there's not a whole lot more besides, I mean, there is and there isn't. There's not a lot that I'm really gonna be decent to weigh in on.
You know the part that killed me. So see, since you're not talking like a shipper, I'm gonna talk like a shipper. There you go. When he says my list, and he says
Yeah,
don't go, don't go. We're only 2 minutes.
I can't
So
survive without you.
yeah, I can't
That's
live without you. I
and
was
that's back to when he was holding Agnes and said, "I can't do this without her," and he can't, and he couldn't have, and he didn't have to.
so up until the moment where you saw him flatlining, you still thought that he was alive.
Oh
It's
yeah,
only when Red says that he
I
was
I thought he
dead.
was alive up until the point where Red said he's dead, and we clipped to the body in the morgue, and I went, "They did it. Are you freaking kidding me?" And I've been in a mood since.
Mhm. Um, I thought it's very interesting, and another one of my reasons why I think the show is approaching the final, and I think it's only fitting because you can. This is not a show that you can stretch like a procedural. It has a story, and if you don't wrap it up before you lose the stories, it will drive people crazier than it is. And I've always said they can't give you too many answers because it's like one of those. You remember those? They're cards. They're made out of like they're three-dimensional cards, and when you lift one thing, they all come together, and you see what it is. And until you do, you don't. You have no idea what you're looking at because it's all flattened out. That's exactly what it is. They can't just lift a little bit at a time, otherwise you'll see the whole thing. And I think that this gives them the fact that 10 months have passed, and then it will be probably another 2 months or 3 months before Liz can actually. They talk about having like a requiem episode for her, in which that's the one where she was walking in the woods and she's talking, remembering Tom and coming to terms with that, and apparently the task force is being given cases all this time. So in 10 months you can wrap another 50 numbers out of there that we will never see, and that will allow them to compress the scene and the story.
Okay, do you have anything else to add?
Um, Not really. I have a lot of the one thing I want to mention, and that's for the people who are just looking at theories, is Red has no clue who Ian Garvey is. Yet Ian Garvey made exactly the same argument when Red, oh, they're not going back to the highway, they're going west. So it tells me that Ian and Red have somehow um, a very similar background. That they can think in the same way. And yet Ian doesn't seem to know or care who Liz is, or who Tom is to Red, or had no idea about that. All right, so in this a very, very strange episode of the podcast.
Sorry,
Um,
guys. I know I'm super worthless on this one. I've had a lot of my heart and soul into this show, and it's kind of been stomped on. So,
yeah, I think it's always very, very hard when one of your favorite characters is killed. But I'm also having my big problem with killing Tom, and I know where this is going. This is Liz was always going to have a choice if she was going to go full Red or not. Um, Red doesn't have a capacity for forgiveness. Liz does. Will this stretch Liz to the point where she can no longer forgive Red? Because she's going to go thinking, oh, Red is helping me find out who killed Tom. And it's eventually she's going to realize Red is trying to find the damn suitcase.
yep.
Is going to realize that Red knew exactly what was going on. And she might be pissed with Tom, but guess what? Tom is dead. So you cannot push away somebody who's dead, but you can with somebody who's alive.
Especially when that somebody that's alive is part of the reason the guy's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I said, this may have just cost Red Liz. And we'll see if he lives to regret it. So,
Did you get any idea when you saw Tom reading the DNA what could be?
no, I have no idea. I really don't. Because I don't think it was just the DNA. I think there was something else in there. Because, I mean, Ian made the comment earlier. He said, whatever you think it is, it's so much more.
And it gives him control over Red.
Mm-hmm. So,
which basically makes it that it's not really about Liz, it's all about Red.
yeah.
Maybe it's time to revisit the imposter. I will do that, faithfully over the hiatus. And maybe it is time to go back to my crazy theory. What if Red is not really Raymond Reddington and he is not Liz's father, but he is Tom's father?
Yeah, no, not going to get on board that one.
It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I mean, I've been on that one, and Canon seem to have disproven just because he acts like a father, and if he quacks like a dog and walks dog and waddles like a dog, it's probably a dog.
Yep.
And with that, doggy things, well, we are we are probably not going to have another podcast until if we continue.
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to hear back from you guys because we started this podcast as a pro Tom Keene podcast. It was meant to provide a source for fans of Tom to hear pro Tom Keene. Yeah, a pro Tom Keene analysis in which, two people that were very fond of him. And without Tom, it really does put a damper on this. I plan to keep watching come January. I will probably even back out by that point. And so, I mean, if people are there to listen, we will probably be continuing this come January. But we'd love to hear back from you to know if our listenership is continuing on for the back half of Season 5. So feel free. We're on Facebook, Tumblr, and Twitter. Feel free to drop us a line. Let us know if you're going to continue on between now and the end of the hiatus. Because, I mean, I know there are a lot of people that right now have, rage quitted over it that'll be back come January. There's a lot of people
Give me your 5 words that define Tom Keene for you.
Oh, God.
As a tribute to Tom, character we both absolutely adore for probably very different reasons, or maybe some of the same reasons. What was Tom Keene? What was so great about Tom Keene?
He's loyal. I know that's one that'll get a few people irritated, but he was very loyal to Liz. He's clever.
Mm-hmm.
Snarky as hell.
He had a great sense of humor. Probably the best sense of humor in the entire show. That's what I feel that without him, this is going to go very dark.
Yeah. I don't know how to phrase this, but sorry, I'm running on like no sleep, guys. I didn't sleep last night. I've not had enough coffee today. The depth of his personality, of the layers that were pulled back, in which he's capable of being both this master spy, very, very talented covert operative, and a family man. One of the things after Agnes was born that I sort of latched on to was the fact that those hands that were capable of snapping a man's neck, in a few seconds, that he was so gentle with his little girl and how much she changed him and how he paused and thought about how he was acting after she was born. So the depth of his personality and his character and his development. I think that's 4. I think it's slightly different. Devotion. Just the utter and complete devotion to Liz. She was his whole world. That was a statement that stuck with me from Jolene. He said, I made her think she was my whole world. He said that to try to put her off. And yet...
And probably using the truth, as most of the undercovers do.
I think he was. And you see it play out over the next several seasons that she was everything to him, to the point that he died protecting her. There's just, I've written metas, I've written stories, I've done a lot in this fandom for Tom, and I personally feel like it's a waste to lose him at this point.
I agree. Yeah, definitely. Tomkin, at the end, Tomkin actually got to me to be about as much favorite as Red was, and that is to say a lot, because Red, with all his immense flaws, tragic flaws, Red is really becoming a tragic hero or anti-hero, but those flaws that do not, he seems to be unable to undergo. And Tom was the same thing. At that point, he could have also said, hey, I'm a father, and maybe I can think about maybe that if I do something for my daughter is in her best interest. And he couldn't do that. He couldn't trust that. He couldn't trust Red with that. Not that Red has done anything to earn that trust, because he's always been using and manipulating people, even as, he's speeding towards Tom to help and recover the suitcase.
Tom had just gotten manipulated by his own parents.
Yes.
The fact that is not ever going to be resolved makes my heart hurt terribly.
I think that they will. I think that they're going to do it through Liz.
Not for that character.
Oh, not for him. No, the character is... But I think that the character, to me, Tom was incredibly smart. He had a great sense of humor, and he was probably the only guy that could have married Liz and survive and have the marriage survive. He didn't, but the marriage did. As opposed to Emma's marriage, as opposed to anybody who had a relationship with Liz that could not keep up with Red. And at the end, Red's world, as Liz said, devoured him. Yeah. And I think that the way this is going, it's entirely possible that Red will basically kill them all.
And if that's how it boils down, I will be a very, very unhappy fan. But, sometimes writers go that direction. John has stated that he has to convince NBC to let him do his final finale.
I have an idea what it is. I'm not going to mention it here. That's very dark. And I'm not sure that it can come here. But anyway, so if you are going to keep listening to us, no matter what, let us know so that we know to continue. Otherwise, we may not.
Yeah, we'll see.
Depending on, we'll see how it goes.
Yep. And then in December, I don't know if we're going to record anything or not, but we'll at least take a video or something and record. But I'll be up in New York, and so Tessa and I are going to hang out and
not be at the set.
Well, I might. I might head over to the set. I don't know now. I don't think I'll be quite as heartbroken if I don't catch up with them while I'm there.
Mm.
So,
but if you wanna catch up with and filming the Spike Lee movie, it's right up my alley.
I guess so.
Yeah, that's pretty close to me.
All right. Well, we are on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. As we mentioned earlier, you can leave us a comment on Facebook, Twitter, or Tumblr. And so, happy hiatus, everybody. Try not to,
Fret too much.
yeah, I mean, I guess so. So, have a good hiatus. Feel free to drop us a line. Bye.
Right.